taking us, because if there are universal laws, then there's a universal lawgiver. We'll talk about that, but I want to start with this. Is there a universal law of right and wrong? Because I have run into, and so have you, I'm pretty sure. And somebody says, no, everybody has, you have your, what you consider right or wrong, and they have theirs, and everybody. This is Nietzsche, you have your way, I have my way, and everybody, and there is no right way, okay? It's a Nietzsche teaching here, on here, Friedrich Nietzsche, on here. So my question is, if you're going to talk with somebody at work or in your neighborhood, and they say, look, I don't even want to get into the Bible, but where do you get off saying that there is a universal right or wrong and there's a universal lawgiver called God? Okay, let's talk about that tonight in our study. So stay with me. I'm going to take you to probably the most powerful outside of the Bible writing based on this subject. I've used it for years. It has been so effective. I'm going to take you through a smidgen of it, but I'm going to recommend that you get this book, and you can get it free online. C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. We've talked about this, all right? Now, I actually have it over here on Internet Archive. I have the book in the house. Matter of fact, I have 2 copies, but you can get it free on Internet Archive, all right? You can get it on there. As a matter of fact, WeLib also has it on there. I think I found 6 sources and where you can have the entire book, PDF, and you can read it online. So you don't have to pay for it, all right, or wait for it. You can actually have it on here right now. The book is C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. C.S. Lewis wrote this right during the outbreak of World War II. In a synopsis, here's what happened. The BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, came to C.S. Lewis and said, we have people that are very depressed. I mean, we just came out of World War I. We still have the wounded walking from World War I, and here we are going back, and people are like, I mean, is there any hope? Is there anything? Is God, is there a God? And the BBC actually paid C.S. Lewis to come on the radio, on BBC Radio, and have a series of talks about God and giving people hope. And he did. And it was so powerful that this was transcribed into a book. I do believe, if I last saw it, it has sold so far over 40 million copies. It is a classic. Everybody here who wants to talk to others about Christ should have this book, or at least access to this book online, okay? Now I'm going to take you to, in asking this question, is there a universal law? Now, wait a minute. Everybody has their own right or wrong, okay? Now, if that's true, then the whole universe is a mess. So do we have anything that we could say would lead us to a universal law, something we can all agree on, no matter what part of the country you are, no matter what your background, your culture, you're going to say, okay, we can all agree on this. And where does that go? And this is brilliant. It's under chapter 1 called The Law of Human Nature. And it's so good, I don't want to paraphrase it. I'm going to read. I wish I could read the entire thing, which I used to do during our lunchtime live streams on Facebook. But we don't have the time. So I'm going to start on this, and you can go into this. This is talking about, are we talking about a universal law? Is there something everybody agrees on? Ready? Everyone has heard people quarreling. Sometimes it sounds funny, and sometimes it sounds merely unpleasant. But however it sounds, I believe we can learn something very important from listening to the kind of things they say. They say things like, how'd you like it if somebody did the same thing to you? Or that's my seat, I was there first. Or leave him alone, he isn't doing you any harm. Or why should you shove in first? Or give me a bit of your orange, I give you a bit of mine. Come on, you promised. People say things like that every day, educated people as well as uneducated, and children as well as grown-ups. Now, what interests me about all these remarks is that the man who makes them is not merely saying that the other man's behavior does not happen to please him. He is appealing to some sort of standard of behavior which he expects the other man to know about. And the other man doesn't, it very seldom brushes it off. Nearly always he tries to make out that what he has been doing does not really go against the standard, or that if it does, there is some special excuse. He pretends there's some special reason in this particular case why the person who took the seat first should not keep it, or that things were quite different when he was given the bit of orange, or that something else has turned up which lets him he doesn't have to keep his promise. It looks very much like as if both parties had in mind some kind of law of rule of fair play or decent behavior or morality or whatever you like to call it about what they really agree. And they have. If they had not, they might, of course, fight like animals, but they could not quarrel in the human sense of the word. Quarreling means trying to show that the other man is in the wrong, and there'd be no sense in trying to do that unless you and he had some sort of agreement as to what right and wrong are. Just as there would be no sense in saying that a footballer, soccer player, had committed a foul unless there was some agreement about the rules of soccer. Okay? Now, this law of rules or about right and wrong used to be called the law of nature. Nowadays, we talk about the law of nature. We mean things like gravitation or heredity or the laws of chemistry. But when older thinkers called the law of right and wrong the law of nature, they meant the law of human nature. So let me stop there and explain where we are so far. What he's saying is, in our world, there is an orderliness, even though we are in a world, as Romans chapter 8, 19 through 22 says, it's under the curse. There is still, by the Holy Spirit, the restrainer, okay, there is still a standard. So when somebody says, no, everybody's on their own, there is no rhyme or reason to do this, everything is relative. So, well, wait a minute now, okay? Everybody seems to agree on this law that's more or less hanging over our head. We all agree on a standard of right and wrong. Now, let me explain what I mean, and you'll agree with it, and so will the person you're witnessing to. Okay, so I'm driving with you tomorrow. Sorry, I got ink. I was doing some artwork here. You'll see. And I'm driving here, and that's me, same big head as I have right now. And then you're with me, and somebody zooms by. Let's say through a school zone, or maybe just something where it's a residential zone, and they're zipping by, and I just go off. That stupid idiot. They're driving there, and they know that the speed limit here is 25, and look, they've got to be doing at least 50, and I'm just raving, and I'm just going off, and you're sitting there, wow, Brad, you're pretty upset about this, but yeah, that's it. But here's the thing. The next day as I pick you up, I do the speeding. Day 2. I do the speeding over here. And then you're here, and you're puzzled, and you're like, well, now, wait a minute. Brad, you're doing 50 and a 25 in the very same area that car was doing it. And all. Now, I don't say there is no rule. I will start making excuses. Yeah, but see, I got to get to the dentist. Or you understand, the gas station, it has a sale going on, gas before it goes up to a certain time. Or whatever reason, I will give you a reason why I broke the very same rule that someone broke yesterday. I condemn them, but I try to excuse it. See, here's the thing. I'm agreeing that there is a universal law that is here, okay? Or let me give you another one, which I use in the classroom, and they always love it, and I gave it to you here. Let's say it's Christmas time. I usually say this is the Kroger Christmas illustration. This will be even better because it's not necessarily a law, okay? As far as, I went over the speed limit. This one's more, it's just an acceptable thing. Okay, it's Christmas Eve and I see you. We're at Kroger or Albertsons or, Costco or Sam's Club, wherever we are, and you're there. And I say, wow, Merry Christmas. It's, we're coming a little bit late here. You seem agitated, and you say to me, oh, Brad, it's good to see you, but I'm a little bit agitated here. You see this line here, and, there's this, elderly lady here. She's going slow. I've got 20 minutes to get home. That's how far I am. And within the hour, people are coming, and I've got all these things I've purchased. And you got a very large cart here. If I make it home right now, I can make it and have these things out for the company coming for a Christmas Eve party. But you see, and a lady up front is just going like this and just moving things, absolutely slow motion. And I say, hey, well, no problem. I got it covered for you. And I walk over to this lady, and I push her back out of line, and I take her cart, and I shove it all the way to the wall. Okay? Now, what's going to happen to me? Let's say I shove the lady back, okay? Now, what's going to happen with everybody around there? I'm going to get accosted. Someone may even start grabbing me. What do you think you're doing to the octogenarian? What are you doing? And as they're grabbing him and they're starting to get me, we're going to take you over to security. People don't, and I start pushing them away. I go, hey. And they actually stop for a second. Maybe there's 10 people that are really upset. And I go, you show me a sign here that says that you are not allowed to push octogenarians out of the way if they're going slow and you're in a hurry. You find me a sign here, and I'll freely admit what's wrong, and I'll even pay for her groceries. Now, what are people going to say? No one's going to say, hey, he's got a point. Someone in there is going to say, that's not the right behavior. You know you oughtn't be doing that kind of stuff. You know better too. Where's your manners? They'll say something like that. That's the universal rule. I didn't really break the law within there, but I did something which is a universal law of behavior. Get it? Starting to walk there? Okay. Follow me now. If you stay with me, this one, you'll never have a question from an atheist or agnostic again. Now, there is more about it, and you'll want to read the first chapter, but I'm going to give you the highlights here on this because this is most powerful. All right? Some people said to C.S. Lewis, I'm reading the next part, isn't what you call the moral law, which I just talked about, simply our herd instinct? Hasn't it been developed, like evolution, just like all of our other instincts? Now, I don't deny that we may have a herd instinct, but that's not what I mean by the moral law. We all know what it means to be prompted by instinct, by mother love or sexual instinct or the instinct for food. It means that you have a strong want or desire to act in a certain way. And of course, we sometimes do feel that sort of desire to help another person, and no doubt that desire is due to the herd instinct. But feeling a desire to help is quite different from feeling that you ought to help, whether you want to or not. Did you get that? Stay with me now. Whether you want to or not. Supposing you hear a cry for help from a man in danger, you will probably feel two desires. One, a desire to give help due to your herd instinct. The other, a desire to keep out of danger due to instinct for self-preservation. But you will find inside you, in addition to these two impulses, a third thing which tells you that you ought to follow the impulse to help and suppress the impulse to run away. Now, I'm going to stop there. And I'm going to draw it out with my magnificent artwork. I'm going to walk this one through because I've actually used this not only in classroom. When I told you with the gentleman at the Starbucks who was an atheist that wanted to debate me, and we had a one-on-one, I actually went through this with him. It had an incredible impact. Okay, so I'm going to take C.S. Lewis' little illustration here. I mean, what he just said, and make an illustration of it and draw it out. Okay, here it is. It's 5 o'clock in the morning, and that's you over in the red, over on the side, and you're strolling down the beach. The sun is just coming. Let's say 5:30. There's nobody else on the beach, and you look down this dock. Now, take the proportions in mind here. Just stay with the story. That dock is 100 feet long, okay? It's a very, very long beach. But you look over there in the side, and it's so nice. You're looking for seashells and everything. And fellow turns around, he kind of waves to you, and he's a portly fellow. No insult. There's a reason I'm telling you this. He's a portly fellow. He has a heavy raincoat on because it was a bit rainy before you got up, and he's been out there earlier too. He's wearing hip waders, which come up to here. They're boots that actually come up across your chest. Many of you fishermen know what I'm talking about. And he's got a hat on there. He's really weighed down. He's got his bucket of bait sitting there. And then you look out there, and he is fishing off the dock, and 12 feet down is the water. And you happen to see earlier that day that part out there's a drop off, and it's 40 feet of water straight down. Okay, so everybody has it. Man wearing very heavy rain gear. He's overweight. He's non-athletic, enjoying his time, very friendly. You're strolling. Nobody else is around. All right. While you are doing that, he takes a step just in the peripheral vision that you have. He slips on some fish guts and he falls in. All right. Flips over and he falls 12 feet down, hits the water with a resounding splat, and there's 40 feet of water there. All right. He comes up. He is gasping, pawing at the water, and you can see him way down there, but you can hear him. And he says 3 terrifying words as the water is filling up in his waders, weighing him down and all that heavy gear and everything. And he says, "I can't swim." And perforated with help, help, help. Okay. I can't swim. Now, according to what we just heard there, C.S. Lewis, two instincts will shoot across your soul, your mind, your being, and you really don't even have to think about them. Do you remember what I just said on there? They were? Let me take you to whenever I was sharing this with the atheist gentleman over at the Starbucks off of Cedar Bluff Road in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I said to him, "Sir, there are 2 instincts." He's really into the story. What are one of the instincts? He goes, "Well, you go help them." And I said, "You're absolutely right." He goes, "Well, wait a minute now. You don't have to be a Christian to have. I said, you're absolutely right. You can actually be an evolutionist. You can be a Darwinist and say that. It's called the herd instinct, which we just heard. The herd, one of the herd will help their own. Okay. For example, if you're there and off the very end, a squirrel fell in the water. I doubt anybody here is going to go risk their life for a squirrel because it's not of ours. It's not of our herd. Do you see what I mean? That sounds cruel, but you get the idea. But a human, one of us, that's the herd instinct. And so the man at Starbucks told me, hey, you can't go Christian. I said, I'm not. I said, what's the other instinct? He thought about it for a minute, and I said, here's the hint, and I want to give you this hint. And if you want to sketch this down, you're more than welcome to plagiarize this beautiful artwork I've done. The second one is this. I gave you the hints. He's overweight. He's non-athletic. No insult. I'm just telling you the facts, okay, of the story. He's overweight. He's non-athletic. He's drowning. The waiters are filling up and pushing him down further. He is just covered with rain gear, heavy rain gear, and he's in a panic. And he says, well, you might go in there and drown yourself if you're trying to get him. I said, absolutely right. And that's the instinct. That's the self-preservation instinct. He goes, yeah, well, that's going to be the same thing. That's not a Christian thing. I said, no, not at all. I said, but I'm getting to my point. Okay. So there's two things that flash across your being. I don't even say your mind because you really don't even think about them. One is, I got to go help him. That's the herd instinct. The second one is, but he's drowning and he might pull me down in the situation here, and I might drown. And so you draw back. That's the self-preservation instinct. Okay. Now I'm going to put you on the spot. You don't have to type it in. I want you to think about this now, and don't go overly noble on me. What's the stronger instinct? And if you're honest, the stronger instinct is the self-preservation. I might drown. Okay. That's the stronger. You want to help him, but you also realize you're putting yourself at great risk, which is why whenever someone puts themselves into that situation of helping somebody, fighting down the self-preservation, we give them medals, we recognize them, we call them heroes, right? Because what they did is they fought the natural instinct of mankind, pushed it down, and went over it and went and helped them, okay? And in this is what would see. Okay, so I'm not done yet. That's the two instincts. However, you said the stronger instinct was the herd instinct. All right. Now, if there's nobody else around, it's 5:30 in the morning, and you know you'll not make it there. And you're looking down there, and this man's going down, and he's already gone down twice. He's got seconds. And you turn and you run, you obey the stronger instinct, which we said, the stronger instinct was the self-preservation. If you fought that and you went and helped him, you're a hero. But if you obeyed the stronger instinct was, I got to take care of myself, and you ran, that's a third instinct. Suddenly, which would totally be like the natural world, suddenly you're going to feel a third instinct, C.S. Lewis says. Do you know what it is? Guilt. If you are in only the animal world, if we are Darwinist, okay, a Darwinist who says survival of the fittest, well, then why would you feel guilty? This man should be athletic. He should not be overweight. You can give every reason, but virtually everybody that would hear that man make that say, that's not fair. That's a life. That's a human life. And you ran away. There's a very famous story. I tried to look it up. I didn't have enough time. But at the turn of in the 1900s, there's a very famous New England story. If somebody can find it, send it to me, and I'll do it, because I'm not giving you an embellishment, but I used it before. I just couldn't find it before we got here. Very famous story in the early Coney Island days when the women were, the bloomers and all that kind of stuff. There was, the men wore straw hats. There was a situation of a lifeguard on a deck, and a man fell in and was drowning. And over there, across there were the lifesavers and things like that. But they were probably 20 or 30 feet away. And the lifeguard was sitting there on a lawn chair, and I'm telling you the true story here. and this man's drowning, and people are screaming as they're running down the deck because the lifeguard is right there, can dive right in. And they're going, the guys, you see it, and he looks over and he's looking right at him, and he goes, I know, the man is drowning, and he drowned. This actually went to the state Supreme Court. And these people are around here, and they said, why didn't you help the man? He said, because I'm off duty. I am not obligated. But they said, you have a moral obligation to help him. Do you know it went to the upper courts, and they said, as sad as it is, we must agree. Now, this is in the early 1900s now, okay? They've changed some things. But then they said, sadly, we must agree, there is no law compelling him. As reprehensible as it is, he did not have an obligation to help him. But morally, we find this very disgusting. And the man was ostracized from that society there. It's the same thing we're talking about here. There is a universal law of you ought to do these things. And I kind of call it the ought law. You ought to do that. You ought to be polite. You ought to be civil in society. And when we see somebody, even in our little town here, when somebody cuts somebody off in traffic, or somebody tries to be mean or something, or there's profanity laced in front of children and things, and people say, hey, and I'll hear it, around, you don't act that way. That's not the way to act. Or somebody cuts in line at one of the restaurants here, fast food restaurant. Hey, what are you doing? Come on. All right. It's the ought behavior, the law of right behavior. All right. So I wanted you to see that, and we can talk some more about that, but this is the thing. There's so much more but I'm out of time here. I want you to get that and read the very first chapter. Every chapter is golden here. But when somebody starts saying, no, this is a Darwinist society, and let me give you an idea, and I'll go to the questions here in this unusual YouTube time. But I want you to take this archive and listen to this again, and then learn these things, okay? So I'm in a televised debate back in Tennessee with an atheist. And he basically started off in these rounds. We had like 5 rounds, and there's judges over there and everything. It was neutral, judges. And he said, there is no right and wrong. I'm a Darwinist. And so when it was my turn, I said, okay, so you're a Darwinist, sir. I want to ask you something. And I looked at the camera, and I said, I want to tell you a true story. And this is a true story. When I was a youth pastor out in Arizona, we had a girl whose name is Shay. And this is real. This is really her name. I'm telling you a true story. And she'll probably see this, and she can verify this if this should come her way. I think she lives in the Atlanta area now. When I moved back east, about 2 years after I had retired from youth pastoring, Shay was with a Christian band, and they would travel. They were fairly successful in going to churches. I don't mean in the Hollywood sense, but they would travel. And they were traveling through Atlanta, in there, and they were kind of like a smaller band, but they were really getting a lot of places that churches like them. And they had a van, and one of the drivers was there, and they had a trailer in the back with all their equipment, and some of the equipment was in the back of the van as well, of this van. But there were 2 seats, and then there was a little pit there, and Shay fell asleep back in there, just kind of tucked and fell asleep. So did the driver. Everybody was sleeping, and he fell asleep on the interstate going around Atlanta. When he fell asleep, he slipped like this, and his hand slipped the steering wheel, so it jackknifed. Everything started flying, and the trailer started flying. Shay was thrown through an open window. They said she flew at least 20 feet in the air and landed on the interstate on her face. She broke every bone in her face, orbital, jaw, teeth were shattered, forehead crushed, everything, I guess, but she survived. They brought her in, okay? So they had to reconstruct her face, and she doesn't look anything the same as she does. It's a very, very strange thing. You wake up and you have a different face after years of reconstructive surgery, and they would go through and tell us what she's going on there. And they're sending news back to me back in, I was in Tennessee at the time and all. Now, up to this day, Shay has to take handfuls of medication, and she is on there. She was on life support for so long. She was in the hospital back in, and for that matter, she still is back and forth on that because of all of the injuries. Okay, so I brought this up in this, and I said, as I told the whole story, I told you, and I turned to the man and I said, when she was in the hospital, you say you're a Darwinist, survival of the fittest. The doctor said to the family, she will be on government hospital care the rest of her life. Right now, she's on life support. It looks like she might not pull through, but if she does, she's going to be on medical care. She'll never be able to have a regular job the rest of her life. She'll be under constant care for her vision, her dental work, everything. It's going to be constant, taking handfuls of pills per day. I turned to the man and I said, okay, according to you, this young lady who was, I think, 19 or 20 at the time, you'd say pull the plug. So I'm going to say in front of this TV audience, in front of these judges and those in the room here, if you're a Darwinist, according to you, survival of the fittest, she'll be a drain on society for the rest of her life. We Christians have compassion, which is why we have hospitals and nursing homes in there. Some of them are private, and we still will pay for that, and we'll try to help out in charity work. But you're saying survival of the fittest. Well, she's not going to be the fittest. So, sir, either deny your Darwinism or tell the camera there on your turn, pull the plug, remove the support for Shay. We went through 4 rounds and he would not touch that question. And every time I'd say, I wanted to say something to our folks here. He has ignored this. He has ignored this 4 times because he knows the answer. There is a principle of right behavior. There's a principle of what ought to be done. And so I leave that with you. All right, let's go ahead and let's start on this, okay? Virginia, that may be it. The Brighton Beach, New York. I cannot remember it right now. I tried to find it, but it's a very famous case. Tricia says, I would say that the people who were trying to get the lifeguard to help the man are just as guilty for not jumping in to save him. It was a little bit different, Tricia, before you go on too far. They were running up and screaming ahead. Help him, help him. You were there. They were running up the dock. If any of you are familiar with the docks like we have out here in the Atlantic Ocean, you are running and they're pointing down there at the angle and trying, gesturing as they're running. It was established in the court. These people were unable to get up there fast enough. They're pointing and everything. And by the time they got within reach, the man had expired in the water. So I don't want you to cast any aspersions on the people that were there. They did everything that they could. I think some of them were actually going over there trying to grab the lifesaver and things like that. Heidi, Genesis 10:2 says the sons of Japheth is named Magog. Is that any relation to the book of Revelation 20 and verse 8? No, I wouldn't go that way. That's a good end times question then. The terms are the same, but it's mostly in Magog, the term there. Somebody be able to even try to go and say, well, this means Russia and everything. Well, you can really stretch this, but the term in Magog, it means, I'm just thinking off the top of my head here because I was just studying it about 2 weeks ago. It just means like the metropolis of confusion, of rebellious. It is used in a term to let you know. It's kind of like when you would say something today, well, that's like Sodom and Gomorrah. That's basically like it. If there is a tie-in, I'm unaware because the stretch would be so far there. But there very well may be. Yet, Karen, I would highly suggest, once again, the name of the book is Mere Christianity. Mere Christianity. And I will tell you, there are such good things in here by this man who, as you may know, C.S. Lewis was once an atheist, was Britain's leading atheist, and came to Christ. And part of the witnessing was from a man you may be familiar with. He was an author by the name of J.R.R. Tolkien, the writer of the Lord of Rings trilogy. C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien would sit down. I'm trying to think of the name of the place. Well, you could find it. Okay. They would go over to an inn and they would exchange and they would actually read each other's manuscripts. And they would sit there and they would talk. And then J.R.R. Tolkien got talking with C.S. Lewis. And when C.S. Lewis, the atheist, would argue with him, and then he would say, and then C.S. Lewis actually wrote in Surprised by Joy, another book. He says, and then I finally decided, I've got him. I've got the question. And so he went into J.R.R. Tolkien that next week and he goes, okay, well, Tollers, if there is a God, why is there so much wrong in the world? And basically, then J.R.R. Tolkien got up and said, congratulations, Clive, you've answered the question. And he laughed. And C.S. Lewis, who's a brilliant man, is a genius, he said, what did I say? What did I say? I said, if there is a God, why is there so much wrong? So the next week, Tolkien left. Next week, he's basically, I'm going to paraphrase this greatly. He goes, stay seated. I asked you a question. You walked out. I asked you, if there's a God, why is there wrong? Tolkien looks at him, and he had that big meerschaum pipe, and he pointed at him. He goes, if there's not a God, who's to say what's right or wrong? And that got Lewis thinking. And he basically said here, a fish in water does not complain about being wet. All right. If we are in an environment, but man is, as it says in Romans chapter 8, verses 19 through 22, we groan, all of creation, even nature groans because we're not settled because of the curse. We've grown for the freedom. We're not comfortable. People will write you and me, or you'll talk with you at times in private or something. We get stuff at our ministry every week. And somebody says, I want to know, is there a purpose to life? I want to know what happens 1,000 earth years from whenever I take my last breath. Where am I going to be? Everybody, we have this. Ecclesiastes 3 says this. God has put eternity in the heart of each man and woman for that matter. Okay. We all have this restlessness. All right. English is not my native language. It's pretty difficult to read. I found YouTube on auto reading. Still difficult. I love how you explained it. Makes it easier to understand. Thank you. Well, thank you, Fem, for that encouragement. And I hope that I am clear. And if I'm not in there, please let me know. Okay. I very much. I don't know if on here you're getting me a bit shady in the picture. That's because the sun is peeking through the trees and it's just hit the corner of the camera. And so I apologize for that. But it also might look, very ornate right here. But that's the reason why we're getting a bit of a shadow here too. Oh, I see another one of my cats is walking by here too. All right. Let me see. Let me see who else we have. Yeah, she's doing an amazing job here, understanding English very much. Okay, if we have another question here, obviously this weekend, here, especially on Father's Day, I didn't do a podcast, but we'll do one tomorrow. We will have our verse of the week tomorrow. I've got a wonderful, wonderful verse for us all. And so I can't wait to share it with you, but I don't want to give it till Monday morning too. And then tomorrow morning here on YouTube, if you're new to us, I want to welcome you on here. And we go and we have a weekday morning, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here. We have a live stream, and you can come on here and ask questions as well. Okay, Heidi, is a fourth cat still around? Okay, let me look at my foot. You see where my thumb is? That's her right there. That's Puddin'. Okay. She's a little nubbin, but got big feet. She's going to grow out to be a big one too, like we think is part of it. So that's her right there. She's actually laying out. She's watching me. She will not get near me just yet, but she's more and more. She was watching me set up out here because I'm not down on that lower part of this deck. I'm up here a little bit more just for a different background here, but she's watching. And now let me tell you something. I went into the barn. Some of you asking about the barn, and thank you so much. We've made it on our support for the new barn studio, which is in that direction here. Back here, I went in and I started to pull some stuff out to get ready for storage, and it's really bad. I started getting a real bad headache over the weekend. So thank you so much, because I couldn't have made it this fall being back in there. So thank you so very, very much for your giving. A brand new barn's going to be here. This is June 21st, within 2 months, within 60 days. And it might be sooner, but they said at the outset, it'll be the second week of August. Yeah, so it'll be there. So thank you so much. All right. Cajun, thank you for the encouragement. He's an awesome God. Okay. And we're learning about him. And I just want to present this to everybody. And I appreciate, even when we have non-believers on here, very polite. We can talk civilly and ask questions, get answers. The same way on the posts too. Get a chance to answer questions too. I'm dealing with somebody that is over on Instagram, and they're going through their church doctrine, which is not scriptural at all. And they keep trying to say, yes, but this will fit in. And I'm telling them, this is not the way it works. God does not say, well, I didn't really mean that. You can figure out where I'm going, and you can tell. And so, but they're civil, and I'm telling them, this is not scriptural. You're going by your church traditions and things. But I do enjoy this. They're civil. Oh, we have people on here I have to block. We're very, very offensive. So I do enjoy when we can have a good time of discussion here. Cindy Lou says, I was at work and a male elderly customer was sharing a picture of the rapture from his phone. He said, I keep this picture because it shows me and my wife what's to come, because reading Revelation is too scary. I gave him scripture about the hour of trial and told it was not scary. Cindy Lou, tell anybody, Revelation 21 and 22. I will actually say this. I will make it very strong. Oh, sir, like I said, oh, sir, oh, you're saying it's too scary. And you're a Christian and you're saying it's too scary. Oh, have you never read Revelation 21 and 22? Those might be the most joyous passages in there. I always take them to Revelation 21 and 22. Please, I'm begging you, read it. You will be amazed. And people will come back, hell, man, I didn't know. Because they go through and they see the different judgments of God, which indeed, as we went through it wears you down. But a lot of people don't read till the end. Revelation 21 and 22, if everybody would commit to saying that automatically when somebody says, well, I don't touch Revelation 21 and 22, you don't want to see how we end up? You don't want to see the win? You don't want to cross the finish line in reading? Oh, my goodness. Look at this stuff. It's beyond our comprehension on the things that are given to the believers. Revelation 21 and 22. If you see the gentleman, get it right to him, okay? Thank you so much. All right. Who else do we have here? Look at TJ talking like a teenager. Cool. TJ's with me on Wednesdays. I'm at her church, and I am speaking then. TJ, it has escaped my mind, and I'm so sorry. It's just I keep thinking of the Pooler Church. Write down here, TJ. Write down the name of your church and the town it's in the city, outside of Pooler. And this Wednesday, I'm so sorry. I don't have my notes in front of me, and I've just forgot the name of the church. Wonderful people. This will be my second week talking with them, and we will be at noontime on this Wednesday. It will not be a live stream, but if you're in the Georgia area, so if you can put down, TJ, where that is, the name of your church and the city, and then somebody here might say, hey, look, I'm in the area, and then come on over there. That's what's so much fun whenever I'm in the Pennsylvania area, for example, and I'll go over there, and some people from Ohio and West Virginia and Pennsylvania will join there. Hey, we wanted to come down and say hi. It's very, very fun. All right. Let me see who else we have. Do we have any other questions here? Okay, other announcements here. As I said, the Barn Studio is completely paid for, and then we're going to take care of getting everything from the barn over here, moving over the furniture, and start getting some new lighting up here so that we will be here. As you know, sometimes we have some very, very difficult times with weather here or lighting. It gets too dark and things like that. So we're going to have the lighting set up there, and it's going to be right behind the camera here. And we'll let you know about that. We'll do a live stream as they're building it too. I'll do that too. All right. So do we have questions on heaven? Let's go into some questions that we have on heaven here. I'm going to get some questions that were sent in. And if there's some here, I'll turn around and I will get that. But I want to share some questions that came over here. And so let me get to them. I have them sitting over here. Here we go. This is from Hodge. Hi, I have a question. What age will people be in heaven? I'm just going to correct this. What age will Christians be in heaven? I want to make sure that we all understand as I start. I'm not a universalist. Everybody that just seems to be nice gets to go. Okay. What age will the redeemed be in heaven? Well, what you're asking here is you are asking by earthly algorithm. You're looking at the calendar of 365 days. And here's the thing, Hodge. You look in 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8, and it tells us that you must separate the two. Heaven time and earth time are not the same. A day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as a day. So when you say what age, by what standard are you saying? Age in earthly years is thrown out the window. Psalm 90 and verse 2 says, Lord, you're the everlasting God. In your presence, a day is as 1,000 years, and it's as the passing of an afternoon. 1,000 years in your presence is as the watch of the night. So we don't have a standard in this three-dimensional world in which we can say that, okay? And there's been a tradition that a lot of people are saying, well, Jesus arose at 33 and we'll all be that same age. And a lot of Christians don't know. That's Islamic. That's an Islamic standard. That's their doctrine. That is not from the Bible. There's nothing in the Bible that says that, okay? So will we be like Christ? Yeah, 1 John chapter 3 and verse 2 says it, but it has nothing to do with chronological age. We will be like him in that, like Luke 24, verse 42. He ate He had flesh and bones on there, and yet he was able to overcome gravity, walking through solid doors and things like that. So it's very, very intriguing here. And that's what we're going to be talking about. Part of our memory verse tomorrow is going to give us an idea about that too. All right. Let me see. TJ, Gateway. Okay. You go on down there. She's telling us now it's at Gateway Church, and that is on Barron Road. Okay. So if you'd like to go over there and have that time, we actually had so many questions. TJ can attest to this. We actually wore out the computer battery on the church's computer. And so this time, Jay, the leader of that, said, I've got it covered here. But it's a real good time. We had a very, very good time. And then don't forget, if you're in the Tennessee area on Sunday, July 12th, morning and evening, I will be there at Oak Ridge Baptist Church in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. In the morning time, the service is like 10:30. The main service. I think I'm even going to teach adult Bible study as well to a smaller group too. And then in the evening, that I think it's around 6. I think they start at 6. But if you want to go to their website, ORBC4U, the number 4 and the letter U, ORBC4U.org. And then that would do. And this will be live stream. If you are unable to travel to a church by illness or injury, if you will go over there, they do live stream both of them. July 12th, Sunday, July 12th. Looking forward to that too. All right. Let me see. Browns, do you have a question there? It looks like you have a question somewhere here, but I just don't see it. So why don't you throw it on in? Hey, thank you so much, Ryder, for coming on here. Don't worry about joining late. You came in, and that's really very, very neat. And it's wonderful. People ask me, that's another question that came up since I'm waiting for some other questions here. And this question came up. Brad, this has happened a couple of times in the past years I travel. What do you look forward to getting into heaven? Now, there's another thing. There's a number of things, okay, I want to tell you, that I look forward to. Among the top things, let me say that, is this. I look forward to having a father for the first time in my existence. You may know that my dad, this is appropriate for Father's Day. My dad abandoned our family when I was a child. Now, this includes my brother, Brent, and my other siblings. My dad walked out on us, okay? He had a series of mistresses, and finally he just found one, and he walked away from us. There were 6 of us elementary age kids, and he bailed on us. Now, after, I don't know, so long, he would have visitation, but it was very stilted. It was, it was, he knew that he had the right to be with us, but we never felt any affection. And so it was very, very, so we didn't have a father. And then my mom remarried, and my stepfather's very cruel. I'm not even going to go into it, but I will say this. If we were to report today what he did in those days, if we knew that we could, he'd be in jail. That's all I'm going to say. So my most enjoyable thought of heaven that I can tell you right now, if you were to ask me this, is I'm going to have a father for the first time. One that I can talk with, Revelation 21:3, who will dwell with me and all of us, abide, make his house. Dad's gone. His house was across the state. Okay. It wasn't there. And when you'd walk in, it didn't seem like a home either. Okay. It was like a house. The Father says, I'm going to make my home with you. Revelation 21:3. It's be my dwelling place on the new earth. I'm looking forward to having a dad. That's what I'm very much looking forward to. And I know a number of you've lost parents. Maybe even in childhood, you were abandoned and it just seems so sad. But I tell you, here on Father's Day, may I say this, you will be in the Father's home, Christian. You will have that. I love this. Of all of the world's religions, we alone are able to enjoy the fact that we say, our Father who is in heaven, your kingdom come. And then we are called brothers and sisters in Christ. And then we are looking forward to being in his home. When we're absent from this body, 2 Corinthians 5:8 says we will be at home with the Lord, home with the Father. Ryder says, maybe a bit off topic, but do you have a preferred approach or go-to approach when witnessing to others? I enjoy hearing how others do so. Absolutely, Ryder. It is on topic. I go to Revelation. I start with the finish line. There are a number of ways, but I can tell you through the years. Can I tell you about Jesus? No. Can I tell you about the Bible? No. Can I tell you about, John 3:16? No, I don't want to go into the Bible. Can I tell you the future? In my experience, I've never had anybody say no. Can I tell you about where you'll be 100 years from now? Yeah, okay. Tell you about this heaven. Okay. That's my approach. I kind of call it sometimes. I used to say the backdoor approach, but one of my mentors goes, "Well, that sounds like you're being sneaky and everything." I said, "Well, that's a good point." I say it's a side approach. Let's tell people. Somebody says, "Don't go to me with the Bible." Well, I don't have to go to the Bible. Let's just start. Where are you going to be a thousand years from now? I don't know. Well, I do know, and it's not because I'm being arrogant. I have the answers from somebody who never lies. Let me show you where I have this found, and then I end up in the Bible, and they don't seem to have a problem with that. So that's one way, Ryder. It really works for me. Gloria says, today at church was wonderful as always, but today we said to all fathers, Happy Father's Day, and sang Hosanna in the highest. Yes, to the Father, isn't it? To the glory of God the Father. I just absolutely love that. And I shared this on a post today, one song we sang today. When we see the Father and we say, hey, he's not going to walk out on us. He's not going to cheat on us. He's not going to lie to us. He's faithful. Remember the song? Tom Chisholm, 1923. He had lived a life of pain and suffering. He was a pastor, and I think after 3 years, he was physically unable to, but he wrote beautiful poems and wrote this song, Great is Thy Faithfulness. Remember that one? Great is Thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with Thee, which that means the sun will move across the sky, and then here we'll see a shadow turn. Okay, it moves as the sun goes. But with the Father, He doesn't move around, so we don't have to say, well, things aren't set. Okay, there is no shadow of turning with Thee. Thou changest not, Thy compassions, they fail not. As Thou hast been, Thou forever wilt be. Great is Thy faithfulness, great is Thy faithfulness. Oh God, my Father. Okay, it's a wonderful, wonderful passage, and it's a great is Thy faithfulness, O Lord, unto me. There's the Father. There's the faithful Father. Wonderful song. Let me see here. Trisha's the next question here. I never had a father, and I struggle comprehending that God is my father. I keep asking God to help me know how to be a daughter. Trisha, I'm telling you, it's the same thing. When a lot of people say, oh, I just feel the love of the Father for a long time, even after belief, said, well, I came through Jesus Christ. But when people talk about that, it's kind of like, I don't have any standard. So I would say this, Trisha, within your church, just within the bound of your church, of those that are your fellow Christians there, building you up in the faithfulness and in the friendship and the love. And I saw Christ, before I was saved, I saw God's love through others in my assembly. Even before I got saved, I saw that when Mom would take us to church and things like that. Brown says, 2 Corinthians 5:1 says, we have a building of God eternal in the heavens. Is this speaking of the new Jerusalem that comes down eternal in the heavens? Yeah, this is what it's talking about. We have this. And it also gives us in the same thing. This building, you'll see this, is going to go down. It actually, in the idiom of it, the parlance, it's saying this, as if you strike down a tent. This is just a tent. We are so fragile. There's no, but our foundation is God. And then we have a building made without hands, in the eternal in the heavens. Oh, this structure is going to go. But then that wordplay goes right into, oh, but what's permanent? Okay. We will be in the, Psalm 23:6 says, I will dwell in the home of the Lord forever, forever. Let me see Brown's question. Have I had any luck speaking to Muslims? I tell them Islam has no redeemer. Without the redeemer Christ, they will die in their sins. I can recall out in California, and I stood on the steps of a man for like 3 weeks in a row for 2 hours at a time. And I gave him scripture, and he said, yes, Allah has told us to read all the scripture. And I was very new in witnessing. And so I didn't lose the debate, but I didn't win it. It was just kind of like, he was very polite. He misunderstood some things. I was able to correct him on it, like as in the Son of God meant the essence of God, not physically a son of God, things like that. But what I do is when one will come on here and start getting aggressive, I will go back to the Quran and talk about the inconsistencies in the Quran where Allah actually says none of his word will be broken. And then they admit, the Bible is to be read as if it cannot be perverted, changed. Well, then if that's so, then you have to believe the Bible, and I would go through that. So yeah, I have witnessed to them in that, and I can bring some more about that out in future dates here too. Let me move. Um, okay, 3 minutes to go. Fam, I guess you heard about this generation will not pass as the Bible clearly stated as generation start with the day Israel became a nation. No, that's talking about this generation. Jesus is talking about those in the room. This generation, like if I said this family right now will not leave until something happens. Well, what are you talking about? Well, I'm all pointing at you, and it's the people that are watching this live stream. Look at the context. This generation will not pass, okay? If that indeed is what you're talking about here, I think that's what you're referring to. Now, with the day that Israel became a nation in 1947, I've also heard that is a reference. I'm trying to remember where the reference is. It is a bit vague, but it still could hold. Then the question is, what generation, what constitutes a generation? Different ones, from a child to adulthood, 30 years of age, they would say that could be, or are you talking about the age of a person? Well, then how long is the age of a person? 100 years, things like that. So that's also a question. All right. Andy says, when Jesus takes us to heaven, is a time in heaven, time or earth time? From everything that we see in the scripture, Andy, when we look in Revelation chapter 8, half an hour, but it's in heaven. That would be heaven time. John sees them asking, no, I'm sorry. John is writing this. The trees of the new heaven, that will be the tree of life, which very well could be in heaven, that gives fruit every month. Well, that would be heavenly time. Okay. So the references here, when we're on the globe, in the references in Revelation, that's earth time. When we're in heaven and we see those things, that's, unless it's clearly stated, this is moving on earth time from heaven. Okay. When you see those things on there. But when we head to heaven, that would be heavenly time. Let me see. For the new earth. Yeah, okay. Andy, yeah, the new earth would be in heavenly time. I think it's what you're asking. On the new earth, will that be a new time? Yeah, Jesus says everything's new. So no matter where we go, Jesus says, Revelation 21:5, everything is unprecedented. So whatever time is going to be, it will not be the same as this time. It'll be free from the curse. It'll be, absolutely unprecedented. We've never experienced it before. So that is a very clear guarantee there. Oh, friends, time to go. It just seemed to go really fast here today. I hope that you get a chance to be able to get the book, Mere Christianity, read that chapter, and look, this is not meant to be read like a comic book. You just study it. You really learn some things here. All right. So thank you very, very much. I see that Puddin back there is waking up and staring at us, and so you can say hi to her. And our other friends are triangulating around me here. I think it's snack time before I go in. Happy Father's Day, my friends. Happy Father's Day to everybody here. And to those that do not have fathers, also, we just say a special blessing on you of comfort, or those who never really had parents, special blessing upon you too. It's a very special time, but we can say this on Father's Day. We do, as Christians, have an eternal Father who will. There's no shadow of turning. Moderators, thank you so much. Everybody have a wonderful evening, and Lord willing, we will talk right here tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a wonderful night.